So originally this manga was going to be covered in the One Piece manga spin-off video I made, but it didn't come out of the US at the time of making that video, but it's out now. And I feel there's enough to talk about to make it its own video. And what manga am I talking about? Well, it's Wanted. What is Wanted? Well, it's a collection of 5 one-shot stories Oda made before One Piece, between the years of 1993 to 1996, including the original version of Romance Dawn, which eventually became One Piece later on. The stories are Wanted, Future Present from God, Ikiyaku, Monsters, and Romance Dawn. So let's read and see why Oda calls this collection a masterpiece. Alright, so our first manga today is Wanted. Made in 1993, Wanted is Oda's debut in the manga world at age 17. It was the runner-up in the Tezuka Manga Awards in 1993, which is no small feat at all. That's a really prestigious competition. So yeah, let's check it out. Our story starts off with the introduction of the main character in this western setting, Gil Bast. He is a marksman who has a large bounty on his head. He's also being followed by this ghost of a man he killed named Wild Joe. And the way he died was from the classic, "Hey, look over there, bang." So by this, you can probably tell this is a more comedic manga, not meant to be taken seriously, but his goal is to get revenge versus Gil, and he won't move on until then. Now normally, no one would be able to see him or hear him, but our boy Gil is special. He can see and hear him, because according to him, he has always had a sense for ghosts. And it turns out Gil is such a problem for the police that they're hiring bounty hunters to kill him. So 2 days go by and they are in a bar where they run into the best bounty hunter in the world, allegedly, Sino Phoenix. Gil notices this and runs away, but Joe, wanting revenge, he takes over his body and picks a fight with Sino, and now a whole duel is happening. So Gil tries to avoid Sino at all costs because if he takes him on directly, he will die. So he outsmarts him by making him, turns attention towards inside the bar, and Gil is able to headshot him from a safe distance. Don't ask me how he got there. It really makes it so a barrel falls on him for safe measure. Joe knows deep down that Gil is stronger and disappears, and that's the end, with no one ever seeing Gil after this incident, according to the narrator. Overall, for our first manga at 17, this isn't half bad. I thought the artwork was alright. The character designs were also pretty good in my opinion. I like the setting, the western setting. So I give it like a pretty average 7 out of 10. So the next manga for today is Future Present from God, which also came out in 1993, and it's a bit longer, with this one shot being 42 pages compared to the 31 pages in Wanted. And so our new story starts off with a new main character named Bronco. You see, he's a pickpocketer, but one day God, after watching him all this time, decides, you know what, I think the world would be better off without him because he hasn't changed his ways. And so God plans on killing him with a meteor, but he makes one tiny mistake. Instead of writing Bronco, he wrote down Branch, and Branch is a department store, to get hit by a meteorite at 4:44 p.m. So God comes up with this brilliant idea to let Bronco live if he can save the people in the store. So God appears on Earth and gives Bronco the book of things fated to happen to him. I think you might know where this is going. He doesn't believe what's in the book, but coincidentally, everything in the book comes true at the exact same time. So later on, he's on top of a building when he runs into God on the same rooftop, and God explains everything. He even proves he and the book are very much real. But our boy Bronco doesn't want to save them, because if God did this mistake, surely he can fix it. Well, he can't, because he lost the eraser of fate and can't stop it. So Bronco has to save them. But Bronco, not wanting to feel bad, goes and tries to save the people in the store. He tries to warn the higher-ups of the store, but they won't believe him. So he stages a bomb threat and gets everyone out of the building. And everything seems fine until it's discovered some mom left her kid in the building. Well, why did you get out the building with your kid? I don't know. I think you're kind of a shit mom. But, besides that, there's less than a minute before the meteor hits. So he manages to get inside the building, save the kid, and jump off at the last second. They both survive. He lands safely and everyone cheers. And so the one shot ends with God in heaven deciding not to kill him after all, and showing that Bronco managed to write in his notebook, which I think is a really impressive feat. I like this more than Unwanted. It was more simple and more fun to read. I just enjoyed it a lot more. So then on to the next manga, and that's Iki Yaku. It was released on April 10th, 1994 when Oda was 18 years old. So our story starts off with our new main character, Gyoko, I'm just gonna call him Goku, getting scared by a man-eater. So he tries to sleep in his village for the night, but everyone there realizes he's a monk and wants him to exorcise the man-eater ghost, or whatever you want to call it. It's basically like a demon thing. So he manages to stay in this old temple, but while he's there, the monster shows up. But you see, it wasn't a monster at all. Instead, it was just some 300-year-old deity of the temple. We find out he just likes scaring people, so, they get to talking for a while. We find out Goku can't exorcise ghosts and is looking for his master. So you might be thinking, oh, so there was never any man-eater. Wrong, because there is one, he is real, and is out there somewhere. And it turns out the deity knew a monk who went to kill it, and I guess he died. So our MC does the normal thing and runs away. While he's trying to get away, the man-eater starts chasing him and starts beating his ass. We find out the man-eater did kill the monk that originally went to exorcise him, and his name was Koshin. Now the deity's furious and tries to kill him, but our MC stops him, and it turns out that Koshin was his master, and filled with rage, he kills the man-eater with his sword, and we get a pretty cool panel out of it. And the story ends with both of them parting ways, and we get a narration saying that he vanquished a ghost while traveling, so I guess he became like a ghost hunter or a demon killer or whatever. I feel like I've been saying this for each of the stories so far, but this one's my favorite. I like how it's more serious than the other two. I like the action in this one a lot more than the other ones. Oda mentions in the little info dump at the end, as much as he loves action, he also loves the little retrospective scenes, and I think he struck a pretty decent balance between the two. So our next manga came out in October of the same year. And fun fact, they got an anime adaptation last year. That's right, I'm talking about Monsters. And this one is interesting because it's kind of canon to One Piece and kind of not, because the main character Ryuma shows up in One Piece during Thriller Bark, where Zoro fights him and takes his black blade. He has that during most of Post Time Skip. He's also pretty important to Wano. He's one of Zoro's ancestors. Basically, what I'm trying to say, he's important for One Piece lore. So this one shot is the one I've been looking forward to reading the most. So let's see what the story is about. So our story starts off with a narrator describing the robbery of dragon horns 10 years ago. But in present day, we meet two pretty important characters, Flare the waitress and Shinro the master swordsman. We also get introduced to our main character, Ryuma. He's a samurai. He's the typical honorable true warrior type of character. For example, we see how he challenges Shinro to a duel after he gets his scabbard. The duel doesn't last long, so Ryuma later on is talking to a bartender, and we find out how everyone in this town respects Shinro because he saved Flare when she was younger from a dragon destroying her village. So later on, another swordsman, a shittier swordsman, hits his scabbard. This time, the swordsman sets him up and uses a dragon horn to summon a dragon, and now everyone hates him and thinks he's going to be responsible for their deaths. Shinro confirms, yeah, it's a real horn, and warns everyone they should leave and that he will fight the dragon. So later on, we see Flare try to stop Shinro from fighting, but Ryuma tries to stop her from seeing what he was actually doing. And when she sees it, she finds out that this man is a bum and a fraud. And the other guy, the guy with the horn in the first place, are in cahoots with each other. And they're in fact the ones that caused the dragon incident that burned down Flare's village. We see that in the extended flashback. And when we see her again, she runs and hides and breaks down in tears. So Ryuma shows up in front of the swordsman, challenges Shinro, and completely one-taps him. Before he can do anything to the other guy, the dragon finally shows up, and this time Ryuma also one-shots the dragon, cutting off his neck with no difficulty. It makes sense because he had a black blade and all that, so I imagine he was pretty proficient with hockey and blah 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 blah. Yeah. But after that fight, he and Flare briefly talk to each other and leaves. And when I'm writing this video, I just realized nothing happened to the other swordsman. Ryuma was about to fight him, but the dragon shows up and we never see him again. So who knows, he probably got arrested or something. I can see why this got an anime adaptation. It probably helps that it's the longest short story, clocking at 45 pages. You know, the story feels the most like One Piece. You know, we have the flashbacks or emotional moments. It was kind of cool seeing what Ryuma was like when he was alive. You know, he was an honorable guy. I'm always kind of a fan of those type of characters. And I would also like to see more of Ryuma, just in canon, like another spin-off or something that actually takes place in One Piece. You know, since this was made before One Piece existed, so it might be a little iffy on canon, but I consider it canon. I still think Ikiyaku is better, but it's not far off from my number one spot. So, our last manga today is the prototype of One Piece. That's right, Romance Dawn. So the original version of Romance Dawn was made in August 1996. This one's actually the longest one-shot, being 50 pages long. Also, you can think of it as chapter 0 for One Piece, and it, just like Monsters, it's been adapted before, twice. First time in 2008, and the second time for episode 907 of the One Piece anime. So, you know, enough stalling, let's see what Oda was cooking up. So it starts off with my goat, Monkey D. Luffy, and he looks pretty much the same as the final design. Besides a very important feature, the scar. That's because Shanks doesn't exist in his version. In fact, Garp of all characters is the one that gives Luffy his hat. But I'll talk about that later. So Luffy is on his boat and some wounded creature falls through it, and we see this large pirate ship, and this is where we meet totally not Nami, Anne. And that creature is called a rock, spelled R-O-C. Also, the captain of the ship is keeping her captive, and that he's a sorcerer. I find that interesting because for all the supernatural stuff in One Piece, there's no traditional magic, spells, you know, witches, wizards, stuff like that, except for that one movie. So I think it's interesting that Oda toyed with the idea of having like real magic in One Piece. So a little later on, the captain throws both of them in jail, and this is where we have backstories for both. The Rock is Anne's childhood pet, and we get a longer version of Luffy's backstory. A side note, Luffy doesn't want to be king of the pirates. No, he wants to be something different, a peace main. So in this continuity, there is no Roger and there is no One Piece. In this continuity, there are two types of pirates. Peace mains, pirates who seek out adventure and prey on the other types of pirates. Morringers, they are the more traditional type of pirates, stealing treasure and raiding islands and stuff like that, you know, pretty black and white. So I can see why this wasn't kept. But back to the flashbacks. It's pretty similar to the canon one, but a huge difference is Garp being a pirate and inspiring Luffy to become a pirate too. So, you know, it's really different. One thing that's not so different is devil fruits. Luffy still eats the gum fruit, and it seems like devil fruits as a home still like kind of work the same. You know, he can't swim after, you know, eating the fruit. So fast forward a bit, Luffy and Anne escaped, and Anne tries to free Rock, but she got shot by the captain, and now him and Luffy are fighting, and we get a nice showcase of Luffy's powers. The captain blows up the ship and flies away with Rock. Luffy chases after him and beats his ass. And in the end, the narrator says in the next 2 years, Luffy rose to prominence in the seas, and that's the end. Gee, I wonder what happened to that Luffy guy. But, you know, overall, it's pretty solid. I'll give it credit. It really seems like Oda had a good grasp on what One Piece would end up being. The main plot is pretty simple. It does its job on introducing us to Luffy as a character and the type of world they live in. This in retrospect is kind of weird reading because you can clearly see where a lot of things changed. You know, one example is obviously Garp being a pirate instead of being a marine like in the final show. You know, some stuff like that. But it does make it actually interesting to read if you're familiar with One Piece at all. If you should read anything from this video, I think it's this one. I think every One Piece fan should read Romance Dawn, or at least watch the, you know, 907 of the anime or the OVA. But yeah. Okay, to end off the video, I'll give my final rankings. 5th place would be Wanted, 4th, Future Present from God, 3rd, Romance Dawn, 2nd, Monsters, and 1st, Ikiyaku. And yeah, that's Oda before One Piece, you know. Sorry, it seems a little rushed. I'm trying to get this out before January 1st, so if you're watching this, happy 2025, you know. this is gonna be a big year for the channel. I kind of say that every year, but this time hopefully it's true. I have some bigger projects in the works. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching this year, and let's hope that 2025 is a big year for us. First and foremost, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Do all the YouTube stuff, like, share, subscribe, all that garbage. Follow me on Twitter, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Peace out. Have a happy 2025. Bye.